Because I remember at the time, a thought that would often cross my mind was, does it mean that simply because I don't have the funds, I don't have the opportunities that the people that do have the funds to go to school have? And I think that the sad truth is yes, we do live in an unequal society, and obviously in South Africa, the most unequal country in the world. How more true can it be than that? Hey, what's up, beautiful people? Deco here, and yeah, thank you for joining me on yet another video. If you're new, thank you. If you're not new, thank you as well. You took your time to be here with me today in this video where I am going to be crocheting whilst speaking about my experience with, I mean, you saw the title, right? I don't know what I'm gonna name it right now, but you saw the title, and I'm gonna go into all the things. You can find me on Instagram at KDeco. I do a lot of sewing. I wouldn't say tutorials really. I do want to get into that this year, but a lot of sewing, DIY stuff. And just recently, I got into crocheting again because this is typically something that happens to me every other year. But yeah, I just got into crocheting and I am making this beautiful stitch. It is this, it's like a cable knit stitch, I think is what it's called. And my plan is to make a dress out of this. So I've already stitched, like, it's longer than me. It's about, I think it's just over 3 meters now. And I think I have to get to about 4 for this dress to work. So that is the vision, and when I make the dress, I will do all the things. So make sure you do follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my channel to stay, up to date with all that is going on. This isn't going to be a tutorial because I can't remember how I started the stitch, and also it doesn't make sense to start a tutorial when I've already stitched like so much of it. So I'm just going to continue crocheting. Okay, so let me start with my experience before giving my 2 cents on the topic. And I really I haven't really spoken about this like this, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I do hope that, this does speak to someone, because I feel like at the time, a conversation like this really would have helped me. And yeah, if it helps you, then great. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's have a conversation. So my experience, right? I was always an A scholar basically throughout like my schooling career, specifically primary and high school. I performed very well, and I especially loved maths. Like, I remember, I think I was in grade 2, grade 3, and my brother asked me, what is your favorite subject? And I was like, maths. And he was like, wait until you get to high school or to something, I don't know, grade 7, and you'll see that you don't really enjoy maths that much. I got to high school and I was like, actually, I'm with this. I really do. I really do enjoy maths. So really numbers, especially any subject that had numbers, I gravitated more towards, because I found it easier than having to write words, right? So fine, I remember then in high school hearing about AXI, or actuarial science, for the first time, and it's this thing that really smart people do, and there's not a lot of black people that are doing it, and especially black females who are actuarial scientists. And I was like, yeah, I can do that, and I didn't really know what exactly it was at the time. And I mean, looking back now, I don't think I had to know exactly what it was, because now I'm not an actuarial scientist, but I'm a working professional, and I've come to realize that a lot of your job you learn on the job, right? So I think I definitely did put a lot more pressure on myself at the time than I needed to, but nonetheless, I didn't really know what an actuarial scientist does. I just know that there's not many of them, and you need to be really smart to do XI, and there's not a lot of, it's like a scarce skill in SA, and not a lot of black females doing it, and you earn a lot of money. Like just everything great about it. And whenever people would ask me what you want to be, I would say I want to be an actuarial scientist. The day the results came out, I think I had 5 distinctions, and I needed an 80% or above in physics for me to get into Exide Vids. I got 79 and I cried. I cried. I mean, like, yeah, sharp, I got 5 distinctions, but I got 79 for physics, so I can't go to Vids, right? But then I got an email from UCT saying that they've accepted me into the XI program. And I remember when I showed my mom the email, we sort of looked at each other, and it was almost this realization that, oh my gosh, I'm going to a whole new city. Because I hadn't planned to move away from home, right? I kind of assumed that I would get in at Wits, and that didn't happen. But anyways, fine, pack up my bags, move to Cape Town, and I start studying XI, right? Now, I get to UCT. Now remember, like not remember because I didn't say this, but all through high school, I literally said I want to focus on my studies, and therefore I'm not going to do any extracurricular activities. I mean, it was just an excuse really for me not to do anything else. Because honestly, if I was just focusing on my studies, I could have done a whole lot better than I did. But yeah, I didn't do any extracurricular studies. I mean, any extra, extramurals, maybe I did netball here and there, and I wasn't that great at it. But the point is, I wasn't really into being involved at school, right? Because to me, my books were important. So I get to UCT, and I remember struggling like the first couple of months even, because for me it was like, firstly, like, XI is hard, okay? XI is really hard. And I mean, granted, I didn't fail, but I just wasn't in the right headspace to be doing XI, at least when I went there. But besides that, one thing that dawned on me very quickly was that for me to thrive in this new environment that I'm in, I really need to know how to speak to people. I need to know how to make friends. I need to know how to engage with people. I need to know how to build a network. And because I was so strung up on just focusing on my books, I really struggled in that department. Like, yes, I had friends that I still do have to this day, but things like joining societies and just doing stuff, I never did because I was so nervous, and it was an idea that was so foreign to me that I just could not get myself to doing it. And I struggled. I really, really struggled in my first year of varsity because of that. My first 2 years of varsity, I struggled because of that. Just not knowing how to integrate into this new world, because all I knew before was academics, and that was showing me flames. So the only other thing that I can integrate to, I don't know where to even start, right? So that was my first year. And to amplify those feelings that I was feeling, right, I did not qualify for any sponsorship. So my family was paying for my fees, but obviously, like, it was more than 100,000. We don't just have 100,000 sitting at home. And I guess I was in that bracket called, what is it called? The missing middle, or the middle something. So you're basically too rich to get a loan. And in my case, I was also unfortunate to get a bursary, or to not get a bursary, but also too poor to afford my own fees, right? So it was a struggle in my first year. And I remember about a week before they were going to close off all accounts that were still owing, only then, by the grace of God, was my family able to cover my fees for my first year. So because of that, I went back for my second year, and still same thing. struggling to integrate into this varsity way of life, and academics again showing me flames. And I mean, I passed my first year, I passed all my modules, but still I'm seeing flames. And on top of this, they, like, I can see the situation, like these fees are just way too expensive for my family to afford. So I just didn't know what to do anymore. And in that year, that was actually the first year of fees must fall protests. This was in, I'm gonna get the year wrong, but it was in that year, right? That year was my second year at UCT. Yeah, it really did a number on me. Just the fact that I know that my family is working hard to try and pay off my school fees, but like it's not working, you know. And Napa, I'm thinking, like, how are they surviving then? Because I'm all the way here in Cape Town and they all the way in Joburg. I don't know what they're sacrificing for them to be able to pay my school fees, you know. So there were just all these thoughts in my mind. And, you know, therefore, like, the fees must fall protest, I was definitely there, because I was just like, there's no ways my family and myself have to struggle so much just for me to get a decent future, right? And I put decent in, you know, air quotes. So fine, fees must fall protests happen, and this time my family just could not pay off my fees. I think I still had like over 100,000 rand in debt, and it just wasn't paid. It just wasn't paid. And I think, though, I've never really asked or followed up on this, but I think that although technically I was financially excluded because I did not pay my fees and I was home for 6 months in what was supposed to be my third year, I never got a letter or never got an email confirming that I have been financially excluded. And I honestly think that that is because of the fees must fall protest. I mean, I'm not sure if it was the case for other students as well, but I know that for me, and I think even at UCT, because I was chatting to my friends and they were telling me that they are extending grace to students that have historical debt and all of that. But the reason why I didn't go back is because I'm like, fine, I go back to UCT, but then how am I going to pay for that? So I'll have 2 years of debt that I'll need to figure out how to pay off. And at that point, because I extended my degree by a year, I wouldn't even be able to get a job, like at least an XI job, or what I thought was a decent job for me to be able to pay off my fees. So either way, I was screwed. And I thought that the lesser evil would be for me to stay home and just not register for my third year. And that was terrible, because I remember obviously, when I refer to my family, I mean, like, you know, specific individuals who were in charge of paying my school fees. But when the wider family and even my friends learned that I'm not going to school, firstly, shout out to all my friends and my family who at the time were like trying to get me into like any other institution, whether it was WITS or UJ or UP, trying to get me to transfer, trying to get me a loan quickly, or like a bursary or whatever. Like, shout out to them, because my spirits were low and there was just nothing in me that wanted to try, but they tried for me. There was nothing in me that wanted to try. And what made it worse was there were people who, when they realized that I am home and I'm no longer at school, it was like they would ask me questions like, what now? Like shame, you're at home now. Shame, your life could have been so much better. And that really hit me, hey, because it almost reaffirmed that, you know, I was studying this thing that was supposed to set me off for success, and now I can't study it because I don't have the money to pay for it, and now I'm home, and now my life is over. Bear in mind, at the time I'm 21, right? I was 21 at the time, and I'm thinking to myself, because of the things that I'm hearing, that my life is over. I'm 21 and I'm thinking that my life is over. And that is the first point that I want to bring. Regardless of how young and even how old you are really at this point, I feel like there's multiple ways to make a success out of your life. School is not the only way, and especially if the only thing that is hindering you from getting an education is money, that is not the only way to make something out of yourself. And I wish that people said more of that to me at the time, because with the mind that I have, with the skills and the talents that I have, I was just sitting at home doing nothing, because in my mind I was saying, I can't go to school and therefore nothing will become of me. But it's simply because I did not have the resources, the financial resources to go to school. So yeah, that's my first point, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the end. But fast forward, I managed to, with the assistance again of family, I managed to secure a bursary that paid off my student debt, and paid off my historical debt, and also would cover me until I finished my degree. And so after 6 months of staying at home doing nothing, I decided I'm going to go back to UCT, because it just made more sense. I'll be able to finish a bit quicker, but I'm not going to do AXI, because AXI anyways was this thing that I didn't really understand, and I did it because there was a lot of pressure on me to do this thing that I myself was also pressuring myself into doing, but really I didn't want to do that, and I just wanted to do something that I know that I'm good at, that will get me a decent job, but also that will allow me to explore integrating not just into the UCT culture, but just being a person. So I remember after I went back to UCT, one of my goals, and it's still something that I believe in and strive towards now, is to be to strive to be a great person holistically. So that's mentally, spiritually, academically, where that does apply, my relationships, just in every facet of my life, to try and be more holistic, or have a more holistic approach to my life. Because for a very long time I struggled, because I think of what is called the A student syndrome, I think, or something like that. I don't know, but basically being so good in school that you end up struggling in life. And that was me. So yeah, fast forward after that, and this is something I'll speak about in another video, but after that I graduated, and then I spent quite a long time unemployed at home, and I will speak about that another time. But the takeaway that I want to speak about in this video is, if you can go to school, go, because that is, it almost gives you like a safety net to know that if all else fails, at least I've got this thing that I can bounce back off of, or it's some sort of guarantee or surety that your chances of getting into the working world are a lot higher, etc. So if you can go to school, go. If you can't, capitalize off of what you are good at. And I remember listening to this when I was back at UCT and thinking, had I started watching this before I got financially excluded, I think mentally I would have been in a better place, because I would have understood that simply because I don't have the finances to go back to school doesn't mean that this is the end all be all of who I am and what my life is. And I think that a lot of the times it's not out of like ill intent or anything like that, but I think that a lot of the time the message that we push is not even the message that we push, but what we imply in the things that we say is that people go to school and they graduate and then they get jobs. But obviously there are people that can't go to school, or go to school and then get financially excluded, or there are people that go to school, graduate, and then are unable to get a job for whatever reason. it might be. And we need to have more people speaking about these types of experiences, you know, where maybe they weren't able to go to school because of finances, but still were able to make something of their life, or, you know, that managed to navigate being, you know, an A student, or even being a mediocre student, or a student that even didn't do so well in school for whatever reason, but knew how to network, knew how to speak to people, knew how to get into certain conversations, knew how to capitalize off of what they have in order to make something of themselves. Because I remember at the time, a thought that would often cross my mind was, does it mean that simply because I don't have the funds, I don't have the opportunities that the people that do have the funds to go to school have? And I think that the sad truth is, yes, we do live in an unequal society, and obviously in South Africa, the most unequal country in the world. How more true can it be than that, right? So yeah, I guess in closing, what I will say is, if you are being financially excluded, or have, you know, been financially excluded, and you're at home, you can't go to school, and you sort of just feel demoralized, or feel like, you know, there's nothing that you can do, because that's honestly how I felt when I went through that. There is still hope. Yes, you might have to work harder. Yes, you know, you might have to pick up on other things that, you know, you might not have had to do had you gone the ideal route of going to school. But those things are normal, and those are things that people actually do, you know. And it's completely okay. Not everyone who goes to school makes it, and not everyone who doesn't go to school doesn't make it as well. So yeah, if you are financially excluded or are running into difficulties, I really do hope that in some ways this does inspire you to push harder, you know, to really realize your full potential, realize your dreams, and realize just, you know, how much of an impact you could have on the world, regardless of whether you can or cannot go to school. But if you do have the opportunity to go to school, please don't take that for granted, because it does give a safety net. It does give some level of comfort, even though not entirely, but it does give, it is some guarantee to know that you can fall back on that degree if anything goes wrong. Yeah, I don't want to end this on such a somber note, but it is something that has been on my mind, and I don't know if I was clear, if my thoughts were making sense, or you know, if there was any order in the way that I was speaking. But I really do hope that my experience, or me speaking about my experience, does help someone out there. And yeah, I didn't even get much crocheting done, if I'm being completely honest. I probably did like 3 lines, which is better than nothing, honestly. Engage with me, comment, follow me on Instagram. Let's keep the conversation going. But thank you so much for tuning into this one, and I will see you the next one. Bye.